Assalamu alaikum everyone. Now I am going to start my lecture. So at first we will revise our previous lecture. Can anybody going to tell me what we have learned in our previous lecture? Okay, principles of HCI. That is good. Anyone can repeat the last lecture or the principles of HCI? What were the principles of HCI? Okay, I have also given you the assignment in our previous lecture. Okay, now I am going to start my lecture. At first, I'm going to repeat our first lecture. In that lecture, we have learned the universal principles of HCI, which already I think Abdullah have told us, or Umar, Farhan, nahi, that was Umar. Umar told us about the universal principles of HCI. After that, we have learned Don Norman's principles of interaction, that is visibility, constraints, feedback, mapping, constraint, consistency, that is important in designing HCI interfaces. After that, we have learned the critic use of different applications in HCI. We have discussed the examples of WhatsApp interface that is user-friendly, tolerance of error, low physical effort, flexibility in use, simple initiative use, equitable use. And then we have learned evaluate how effectively user can interact with different application. A user can effectively interact with different application if the application has visibility of system status, match between the system and the real world, use control and freedom, consistency and standard, error prevention, aesthetic and minimalist design, help user recognize, diagnose, and recover the error. And after that was the assignment, which has 2 questions. So in today's lecture, this is lecture 4, and today is 5th of October 2022. The course we are learning is human-computer interaction. And today we will cover 2 topics from Unit 2, that is be able to plan an interface for the specified application. And the topic will be plan an interface for specified application to meet a brief, or the user interface design technique to meet a brief. So what is user interface rules? Why we need an interface of application? Why it is important? What is interface? Interface is the display of any application. So it is important because through interface, we interact with the application. There are different interaction styles. The concept of interaction styles refer to all the way. Okay, the user can communicate or otherwise interact with the computer system. The concept belong in the realm of HCI at least have its root in the computer medium, usually in front of the workstation or desktop computer. So we have different styles of interaction to interact with the application system. Whenever we design any kind of interface, we have to interact with the system. For designing an interface, we need user requirement, or why we need the application. After that, the second heading will be user interface design. This first tends to have been related to another form of people acting directly on the machine to acting indirectly, so increasingly elaborate self-presentation in which many layers of programming stand between underlying process and what is presented to the user. So whenever we have to design the user interface, at the back end, there is programming through which the application is running. We need a programmer to design an interface, and the thing which is displaying on the screen is the front end. The back end will never be shown to the user. So the concept of interaction styles refer to all the way the user can communicate or otherwise interact with the computer system. The concepts belong to the medium computer, usually in form of workstations and desktop computer. These concepts do, however, retain some of their descriptive power outside the computer medium. For example, you can talk about menu selection in mobile phone. The example of a user interface will be form filling, menu selection, and the direct manipulation. Whenever you turn on your phone, you saw different types of icons in front of you. So that is the user interface. At the back end, there is programming which is not understandable by the common man. So there will be some advantages of user interface that will have to be flexible, appeal to user expert, support certain users, and define descriptive, is suitable in interacting with the network computer and will lower the bandwidth. So the next will be heuristic designs principles. In our previous lecture, we have learned about Dan Norman's principle of design rules. In this lecture, we will learn heuristic designs principle. That is also important. Nelson 10 heuristic principles. One will be visibility of the system. Whenever you have to design an interface for any type of user, you have to keep in mind these 10 points, because this is important to design an interface. Whenever you have to design an interface, you have to keep in mind that you have to follow the Nelson 10 heuristic principles. So that is important. Visibility of the system status. Match between system and the real world, user control and freedom, consistency and standards, error prevention, recognition rather than recall, flexibility and efficiency of use, aesthetic and minimalist design, help diagnose and recover from error, documentation and help. Whatever you have to design have to be visible to the user so that they can see what is on the interface. What is their demand is important for the programmer. Match between the system and the real world. Whenever we have to design any kind of application, we have to keep in mind that application must be related to the real world. We don't have to design any kind of application that is imaginary and that is not possible, like a Facebook. On Facebook, there is no imaginary content. There is all about the real world, where different type of people communicate with each other, share information, and share data. Anyone can give me the real-time application example? Okay, the other example will be WhatsApp and different applications that we are using, like in games like PUBG and different games we play daily on daily basis. User control and freedom. The user can control the ID, like in Facebook. Whenever we use the Facebook, we have a control or on our ID. We can delete the content, we can select the content we want to see. It is totally upon the user what he wants on his ID. And freedom, there is no such restrictions on application that user can be that bond the user to use the application. So whenever we talk about the Facebook, that completely follows the Nelson 10 heuristic principle. The consistency and standards. Consistency and standards is important in any type of application, because whenever we have consistency, then we have standards. If we don't follow the consistency, we didn't follow the standards. Error preventions. What is error prevention? Means there has no glitch in application. Sometimes we have to follow different type of glitch or errors in on the user side, but the programmer correct that on time. Recognition rather than recall. Recognition means verify the error, and then recall means then recorrect the program. Flexibility and efficiency of use. The application is flexible and efficient to use. Aesthetic and minimalist design means everyone can use the design and can understand the design, whatever they are doing on Facebook. The design of Facebook is very aesthetic and minimalist, but means easy to use. Help diagnose and recover from error means whenever we have any kind of error on application, The programmer from the backend side diagnose and recover the errors. After that, the documentation is important. Whenever we have to design any kind of application, we have to document it, because after few time we will forget what we have done on the application. So it is important for us, whatever we are doing on any type of application, we have to write it down, so it will be easier for us to find the error where we have done the mistake, or in future if we found any type of mistake, so it will be easier for us to see the document and then correct the error. The above mentioned 10 principles of Nelson serves as the checklist of evaluating and explaining problem for heuristic evaluator while auditing an interface or a product. So interface design guideline will be some more important HCI guideline represented in this section. Generally, interaction, information display, and data entry are three categories of HCI design guideline that I'm going to explain. That is journal interaction. What is journal interaction? Whenever we are using heuristic design principle, the journal instructions are comprehensive advices that focus on journal instructions such as be consistent, offer significant feedback, ask for the authentication of any trivial critical action, authorize is reversal for most action, listen the important amount of information that must be remembered in between actions, seek competence in dialogues, motions, and thoughts, excessive mistakes, classify activity by function, and establish screen geography accordingly. Deliver help services that are context sensitive. Some use action verbs and short verb phrases in name command. So when we design the application, we have to write the name of the icon under the icon, because it will be easier for the unknown person to use the application. It will become easier for them to just read the content and use it. What is the information displayed? Information provided by HCI should be incomplete and unclear, or else application will not meet the requirement of the user to provide better display. The following guidelines will prepare. Exhibit only that information that is applicable to the present context. Don't burden the user with data. They use a presentation layout that allow rapid integration of information. The standard label, standard abbreviation, and probable colors permit the user to maintain visual context, generate meaningful error message, use upper and lowercase and text grouping to aid in understanding, use windows if available to classify different type of information, use analog display to categorize information that is more easily integrated with this form of presentation. Consider the available geography of display screen and use it efficiently. Data entry. So whenever we design any kind of interface, we use data entry. For example, in Facebook, whenever we have to update our status, we have to enter the data. Where the data has stored? The data has stored on their database. Now, what is the difference between Nelson heuristic principle and where should we use which? Nelson heuristic principles are the designs of principle. Whenever we design any type of application interface according to the user requirement, we follow these principles. These are the standards which we have to follow while designing any kind of interface according to user requirement. In our next slides, we will discuss the interface. What is user interface? How we follow the instruction of the user to design any kind of interface. In that, we will discuss heuristic design principle. So you have to understand these principles for designing any kind of interface according to user requirement. Okay, anyone can tell me what is interface? Interface of any application. I've told you in the start of the lecture what is interface. That is a part of software people interact with. Okay, that is a part of software, but that is the interactive part of software, the screen which is shown to the human. Whenever we use the application like Facebook, we follow different type of icons in front of the screen. So that is the interface through which the human will communicate with the computer. That is also right, but interface is something that is visible to the human. I'm continuing data entry. Allow the user to control the interactive flow, offer help to assist with all input action, remove input. Whenever you enter the data or any kind of status on your Facebook, you can edit it, you can increase the size of the text, you can remove it, you can upload it, you can apply different designs on the text. That is also the part of interaction interface. In next slide, that is HCI interaction design. HCI interaction is the design of interaction and interactive product and services in which the designer focus goes beyond the item in development and including the way user will interact with it, thus close to the security of the user need. Limitation of context examples empowers designers to customize output to suit precise demand. When the user give any type of instruction regarding the interface, because they are unknown to the design, so the designer can change the context according to the requirement. For example, if I am going to any programmer and I am asking him to design an application for me in which I want different designs, font styles, themes, and colors, so he can change the he can change the content according to his requirement, because sometimes the user don't know how the design will look like. So if he is the programmer and the designer, he better knows how to design the application, so he can change or customize the design as per his requirement. After the design have been completed, it will be shown to the customer. So after that, it can be changed according to the customer requirement. What designer do with 5 dimension of IDX means, what are the dimensions which designer follows to design any kind of interface? That is important. Listen to it carefully because it will help you in your final assignment, because you have to design an interface for any application. So the UX mean designer, that is the interface designer or interaction designer, is the axis in which our work revolves. Design the human interaction with digital product, however the term that applies that understand how people interact with non-digital products. Whenever the designer design any kind of interface, he follows these 5 dimensions. One is word, second is visual presentation, third is physical object and space, means 3D dimensions. Number 2 will be time, and the number 5 will be the behavior, how application is going to work if user interact with the application. In these 5 dimensions, firstly defined by a professor of London Royal College of Art, Gillian, that the dimension represent aspect and interaction designer considered when designing interaction. Word. They've explained all these dimension. I will share the notes with you, so it will be easier for you to memorize these 5 dimension, because these are important for designing any kind of interface. In this, I will also show you a video because it is also important part of this lecture. So first I am going to discuss it with you, and in first session, last 2 minutes, I will show you the video. So first one is word. encompasses text such as button labels, which will get a user right amount of information. The example of word is whenever we have to sign into the Facebook, after entering our username or password, we have to press the submit button. That button is word, means the word has been written on the button to follow. So we follow the instruction to submit it. The visual representation as a graphical element such as image, typography, and icon and aid of the user interaction. In Facebook, there is a title bar. After that, there is a toolbar where we show four buttons, I think. One is the home page, second will be the video, and the third one subscription, and fourth one will be your user account. These four images has been shown on the first interface of Facebook. The physical object space 3D refer to the medium through which the user interact with the product or service, for instance, laptop, mouse, or mobile via finger. So we use our touch phone with our finger. So that is the physical object we used in the interface. The fourth one is time, related to the media that change with time, such as animation, video, and sound. Whenever we scroll up, the video is changed. The duration of changing the content is the time. So that time is important. Behavior is concerned with the low and previous four dimension defined interaction a product afford. For instance, for how user can perform action on website and how user can operate a car. Behavior also referred how product react to the user input and provide feedback. The interaction designer utilize all five dimensions to consider the interaction between a user and the product or a service in the holistic way. Specifically, we use them to help in envision the real world demand of usership in relation to design not yet introduced. For example, the designer of an app that must process data at high speed in order to find result inside mass transit system will face accommodating the constraints of underground computer, cramped space, fast journey, and dead zones. You can see in this dimension, they are showing you all the five dimensions of the interface. So they have reached the fourth one whenever they, okay. Now you can see this is the form application, the text. That is the text, and that is the visual representation, the button. The physical object, the laptop. This is the laptop, and this is the physical object through which the user is going to communicate with the system. The time means how long it will take to enter an application. And the last one will be behavior. How the system is going to allow us to enter the application. So that is the behavior of the system. Okay, is this clear to you? Because this is important in interface designing. You all have to know what are the five dimensions used in interface design. Okay, we have discussed this. And the next point is interaction design, mean the part of UX design. UX design is the part of interaction design. In this picture, you can see a big circle that is UX design, and the other one is interaction design. UX design is the interface design or interaction design. It is sometimes used interchangeably with user experiences design. That's understandable considering interaction design is an essential part of UX design. Indeed, UX design entails shaping the experience of using products. The big part of the experience involves the intended interaction between the user and the product. However, the design goes far beyond that. The designer working word is concerned with the entire user journey. Because the user requirement is important, we have to follow the user's instruction to design any kind of interface, including aspects of branding, design, usability, and the function conservatively. The central role of interaction designer target the movement of use and how to improve the interactive experience. Thus, the interaction design has 5 dimensions, that is pivot or realm for the user experience. Since the moment of use in the asset test design, where the designer manipulation of 5 dimensions must offer user satisfactory. It is not better experience if the user find themselves hindered by practical features such as text heavily notifications and overlong animation are put off by the aesthetics or the responsiveness of the design fail to match their needs. In context, the design will fail regardless the brand behind it, and the ix product reflects absolute value. So for the designing and application, we have to keep in mind all the 5 dimensions and the interaction design. In this, how to design a good interface. Whenever the user will come to you and ask you to design an interface, so you have to keep in mind these 4 points because these are important. Sorry, to design any kind of interface. The first one, who? Who is going to use the system? Are there, what are their ages? So when the user came to you, suppose he wants to design an application like which application? Okay, Facebook. We are taking the example of Facebook. So the ages of Facebook users will minimum uh, 18 to, I think, starting from 18 and up to whenever the whatever the ages will be is up to 100 or 105, but the starting age is 18. So you have to keep in mind the user you are going to target as above 18. So the color and the font style you are going to use in your interface is important, because the people above 18 mostly like light colors, aesthetic designs, and interactive design. They don't like animation, dark colors. You usually see that in Facebook they use blue color because that is a mature color. People usually like blue because that is light. They like it because that is in light shade, and that is interactive to them as well. In Facebook they use green, that is also in light color. Mostly people like green colors. They don't use red, pink, or orange, yellow, because that is not good. You see in Snapchat they use yellow color. Their theme color is yellow because mostly the people using Snapchat is under 18. So they use color according to the ages. What tasks are they likely to want perform, repetitive, complex, or simple? So in this we are going to take the example of a game. If we have to design our interface of game, we have to mostly design a repetitive task or complex, because when the person is going to die, so he have to start the game again. So we have to follow the repetitive design. In complex, we have to design different levels. The design of the level have to be different. And simple, there is a lot of simple games available on um, app stores, so you can usually go and see there. So that is also important, what application you are designing and what type of tasks are performing there. Environment. Okay, the environment, where is the computer to be used in hazardous or noisy environment? So for games, you can use the computer anywhere at your home, but you mostly like quiet places, because in different kinds of games you have to use the computer, where you have to talk to your fellow to play the game in a specific way. Feasibility. What is a technologically available designer should be added element to the interface that cannot actually be carried out easily. So the designer usually make the design or element of the interface that usually be easy for the user to understand, and how they are going to use the interface, that is easy. So in these visibility design, we use 5 dimensions, that is word and visual text, times and behavior. In the other slide, that is evaluating interface against requirement, means a user came to you and asked you to design an interface for them, so you have to evaluate what type of design user want. If he wants a website, you have to design a website interface. If you want an Android design or mobile application design, you have to design the interface according to that. What is the GUI? GUI stands for graphical user interface, the interface which is visible to the user, means the front end. The front of end of the application, web applications, mostly client use browser as GUI, means you have to run the application on Google Chrome or different kind of applications. A web app require multiple languages and often duplicate coding and server client HTML. These are the languages which will going to be used in any kind of application designing. Web application design, the application start with issuing HTTP request, means whenever we have to write the name of the website on the title bar of the Google Chrome, they started with HTTP, the request of the HTML document in modern app, and the entire application UI is contained with this HTTP document. So usually when the user asks the browser to open the application, and the data will be loaded from the server to the front end. So it will be easier for the user to see the front end of the website. GUI of mobile. For interface of mobile application designing, you need different type of languages and interfaces. Graphical element must be on the right side and the layout of the design, means whenever you have to design the mobile application, that you have to follow the different protocols, and for website development you have to follow the different protocols. So that is important, that you have to know what type of application you are going to design and what are the standard for that design of application. Portable and multi platform and multi OS, means whenever you have to design an Android application, you usually notice that all types of phone which we are using has of different sizes, means some of are available in 4.9 inches screen with 4.5 inches screen, 6.3 inches screen. There are different screens available in market because we have variety of range of phones available in the market. So we have to design the interface that is compatible to all kind of interfaces or all kind of designs available on phone. So it must have to be portable and multi OS. Navigation, back button are more important. So in different phones there are navigation and back button available down on the interface. So you have to link it with the application to provide the flexibility to the interface or application. A single PC screen may consume several mobile screens. All on screen approach is most useless and mobile app. Font, color, icon selection, and critical due to size constraints. That is important because the font have to be small, the color must have to be dull, and the font color must have to be lighter because it must have to be visible to the user. The icon selection which you are going to add on your application, direct manipulation and principles are expected to used almost all the time. Personalization require a great deal of work for the developer, must Understand the application domain and the user thoroughly before designing the GUI may require several iterations. Keep it simple. Whenever you have to design the interface, you have to keep it simple because most of the people using the application may be illiterate, so it will be difficult for them to use the application. What is responsiveness layout example? What is responsiveness? When you use uh, a phone to open an application, that must be have to be in mobile format. Whenever you have to enter, you have to open the Facebook on web, the design of the Facebook on web has different, and the view of the website on Facebook on mobile phone is different. So you can see the design. This is the website, that is the example. In next slide you can differentiate it with this website parlay is opened in desktop format, and this is in phone format or mobile application format. So your application must have been responsive design, so it is easier for the application to open in any kind of interface. So responsive design in early days the web design, there are two options when designing a website. You could create a liquid site which would stretch to fill the browser window, or a fixed width site which would be fixed size of pixel. There are two approaches tended to result in a website that look its best on the screen the person designs on the side. The liquid sites resulted in squash design or smaller screen and unreadably long line length or longer ones. So what is the difference between the liquid size and the fixed width size? Anyone knows about the liquid size and the fixed width size of the website? Fixed width layout, these are layout where the width of the entire page is set with the specific numerical values. And the liquid, there are the layout where the width of the entire page is flexible depending upon how wide viewer browser is. So nowadays we are using liquid width size. There are good reason of using both layout, but without understanding both the relative benefit and deficiency of each method, you can't make a good decision about which to use for your web design. Fixed width layout is the layout that starts with the specific size by the web designer that remain with that width regardless the size of the browser window viewing the page. Fixed width allowed the designer more direct control over how page will look. The fixed width size is the size which is given by the numerical values, and the liquid size is depending upon the size of the browser which user is using. It will change automatically depending upon the user requirement. So they often preferred by the designer with a print background, as they allow the designer to make a minute adjustment to the layout and have them remain consistent across browser and the computer. Liquid layout are the layout that based on percentage of the current browser window size that flex with the size of the window even if the current viewer change his browser as is viewing the side. Liquid width allow the user to use efficiently the space provided by any given browser window or screen resolution. They often preferred by the designer who have a lot of information to get across in a little space as possibly, as they remain consistent in the size and relative page weight regardless of who is viewing the page. There is one word used, that is stack. User website affect your site responsiveness and adaptiveness depending upon which are using the website. Your reader has the ability to scan your text, find what they are looking for, and sometimes even use your site may be helped or hindered. Your site overall brand identify may be at risk, especially if your brand standard follow the print first logic model. There are some benefits of fixed width layout, that is, allow the designer to build a page that will look identical no more who is looking at them. Fixed width elements such as image will not be overpower text on smaller monitor because the width of the entire page will include those elements. Scan length will not affect by the large segment of text no matter how wide the browser is. There is also some benefits of liquid layout. The liquid layout expand the contract to fill the available space. All available real estate in use allow the designer to display the content on larger monitor. Liquid layout provide consistency in relative width, allowing the page to respond more dynamically to the customer imposed restriction like large font. So whenever you have to select the liquid side or fixed width size, you have to see their advantages and disadvantages for user interface or user requirement is more important. If you have any question, you can ask. I am going to explain HCI interaction design because we have not discussed this in detail. The HCI interaction design is multidisciplinary field to study focusing on the design of computer technology and in particular the interaction between the human and the computer. While initially concerned with the computer, HCI has since expanded to cover almost all forms of information technology design. HCI soon became the subject of intense academic investigation. Those who studied and worked in HCI saw at as it is crucial instrument in popularizing the idea of interaction between the computer and the user should resemble the human to human open-end dialogue. Initially, HCI researchers focused on improving the usability of desktop computer. However, with the rise of technology such as internet and smartphone, computer users would increasingly move away from the desktop to embrace the mobile world. Also, HCI has steadily encompasses more fields. HCI is a broad field which overlap with the areas such as user-centered design, user interface design, and user experience design. In many ways, HCI has UX design despite that some differences remain between HCI and UX design. HCI tend to be more academically focused. They are involved in scientific research and developing empirical understanding of user. Okay, there is a small history of human-computer interaction. You can't do anything right. Human-computer interaction is academic discipline that is most of us think as UI design. It focuses on the way that human being and the computer interact with every increasing level of both complexity and simplicity. It vary. It is a very new discipline. It's perhaps easy to see that until the mid of 90s, the discipline wasn't particularly important. The few people had access to the computer were academic or professional, with a few incredibly dedicated hobbyists thrown into mix without a broad base of users. It wasn't necessary to focus on how those users interact with the computer. They just made do it whatever was to hand or created they need themselves. Then the dawn of the personal computing, the floodgate opened, the massive important computing, and they didn't want to go through the complicated to do what they wanted with the computer. They aren't prepared the liquid and program their own joysticks for the game they bought. They didn't expect to design the mouse before they could use a word processor and so on. Cognitive science. Cognitive science is also important part of HCI interaction design. Luckily, it is a message. There was a discipline waiting in the wing to help with the task that lays ahead. Cognitive sciences had been making steadily progress during 1970, and by the end of decade they were ready to help the system and the science required to help the user interface and work for the masses. Engineering is known as cognitive engineering, building things that work with our thoughts. And once again, the engineering disciplines had also come on lead and bond during 1970 in order to support the change. For example, the engineering had already started to specify the user interface and complex airline. It is also natural for some of this work to move into the UI field of computing device. As we have discussed before, documentation is also the important part of HCI. It is important to recognize the challenge of documenting these development. New systematic approach needed to be taken in order to record the development and to share with other new discipline worldwide. There are really, after all, no advantage on retaining the mouse over and over again. Interaction between the product design services on one side and human on the other side should be conservative between two humans, and yet many product and services fail to achieve this. So that this is how to know so as to create an initiative user experience. Human psychology, human centered design, human specialist design process, and the is the answer of the HCI design interaction. So in this lecture, we have discussed some important points of HCI design. The first one was Nelson, 10 heuristic evolution points. After that, 5 dimensions. The responsive design of Android and web. The responsiveness of Android and web is important because you have to run your application on different interfaces. So it will be easier for you to use the application and from the user, and it will be easy for the user to use the application. Because if your application is not responsive, it will be difficult for the user to use it, because some of the icon will not be visible to them. They don't know how to use them and they have to face a lot of difficulties. So they usually go to the designer and ask them to correct it. Okay, I have to tell you some important points regarding HCI interaction designs. I will share you the notes with you, so it will be easy for you to design the assignment. Okay, tomorrow will be the last date for submitting the assignment, so don't take it easy. Okay, when the user will come to you to ask you to design an application, they will usually tell you about a story, like why he want this application, which type of application he wanted, what will be the interface of the design. That is known as the storyboard. The storyboard will be discussed in the next lecture. That is important because in your final assignment there will be a storyboard available for you, where you have to assess what type of interface the user is demanding, and you have to design the interface on the paper or as well as on the computer screen. So for designing an interface, you have to follow a process. One is requirement specification. At first, you have to ask the user to give you the requirement and the storyboard. After that, the design and the detailed design, implementation and unit testing, investigation, and operation and maintenance. You can use the iterative design and prototyping as well, because it will be easier for you to design the interface using the storyboard and these type of approaches. If you have any question regarding today's lecture, you can ask. Okay, I'm ending the session. If you have no question, Allah Hafiz and submit your assignment till tomorrow.